Ladies and gentlemen, I know there are many people that are being introduced to the creators in these reaction videos for the first time. There are many that are not. Today we are talking about Preach. That is not his real name, but for those of you Googling him or looking for him, Preach is a creator, I believe it's Michael, that is a big WoW creator. He is incredibly on the end game side of things. He's incredibly knowledgeable in the end game. If you ever get a chance to watch him talk over like a World First cast or do an interview like he has with Ian Hanakostas, which is like the Yoshi P, he is the director of World of Warcraft. He is big in the space, but if you are wanting to get into his content or give him a try, his much more approachable, much more wide-reaching content is every Friday morning he films Drama Time, Friday morning where he lives, and Drama Time is it's brilliant. I don't know how else to describe it. You can start anywhere you want in the old stuff and the new stuff. I like the new stuff better, but then there's going to be inside jokes and previous references to old stuff. Go check out Preach Gaming on YouTube. Go watch his streams. He's a variety streamer, especially since right now in WoW his guild fell apart after clearing Nathria. And so his casting to World First and all of that, it's amazing. Any of you coming from WoW likely know who Preach is because he's massive. He has a massive impact and influence, much larger than his view counts or anything may suggest, because his knowledge on the subject and his balanced and respectful views on the subject, even when he disagrees, are very reasonable. His interview with Ian Hanakostas, he didn't have to attack him, even though when he posted his reaction to that, his thoughts after the fact, it's very clear that he doesn't necessarily think that where the game is being directed is necessarily the best use of resources, in his opinion, as a viewer and as a consumer and as a content creator. He's just a great voice in the space. And so today we're going to watch him try to make sense of Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XIV content is iterative in nature. And so this is a lot like trying to watch Nathria as your first ever raid watching experience in World of Warcraft. Never having watched raids before, never having run dungeons before. Mechanics and things that are basic visual representations, a DBM type call out, anything that you would be used to seeing. A new player would go, I don't know what's happening. What's all this stuff? And they, oh, well, that's called weak auras. And so let's go see kind of how he responds to this. He's incredibly good at diagnosing World First mechanics. So I assume after he sees things, he'll adjust. But I just want to find out. He's down on the left. On the right, I believe is going to be his voice of reason, his voice of Final Fantasy XIV to help clue him in anywhere. But I have not seen this yet. So let's find out.
What in the f is going on?
Good.
It's a splooge.
Good.
What is my screen right now?
This is why people...
Noobs, man. So
This is why people turn down visual effects in 14. It is overwhelmingly bright.
easy. Just stand in it, bro. God, how do you get this wrong? All right, you lot. After so much badgering, the question is, can I tell? Because apparently everything in Final Fantasy XIV is so well telegraphed that it's something we should be able to pick on. Can I, after all the years of playing World of Warcraft, figure out what is happening in a Final Fantasy XIV boss fight by just looking at it? So I've drafted in somebody who actually knows a thing or two about Final Fantasy XIV, because you've been playing it. Mr. Nups, what have you got for me here, pal?
Hello, everyone. I've basically got the intro extreme trial to Shadowbringers, which is the latest expansion. I don't have any experience on like the hard fights, which you did ask for on Twitter and stuff. But we've gone for basically like the intro heroic level-ish fight of Final Fantasy's latest expansion. So let's see if you can figure out what's going on in this.
So in WoW terms, he has found somebody who is clearing normal and heroic dungeons to show a Mythic 15 clear. Oh, that is a bold strategy. So now it's a question of how much has he watched? Because if you watch a lot of Extreme, if you watch a lot of Savage, you might be able to do some of these call outs and at least translate, which is where I come from. I watch a lot of Savage and Extreme and even some Ultimate. So bold strategy, Cotton.
One.
Yeah, I do want to put out. I did ask on Twitter what is like the best boss in Savage, and it has led to well, it's turned into a war. I asked
Yes.
for it 2 hours ago, and my Twitter is now a current storm. So I'm really sorry, but I asked Mike something that he knows about and can talk to us about, and honestly.
Savage is our true raid series. We only get 12 bosses per expansion, roughly, because it depends on how you count extremes and ultimates, but we basically get 3 chapters of 4 each. And so it's not very many, as opposed to World of Warcraft when, let's say, you get 3 tiers in Shadowlands, and let's say each one ends up with 10 bosses for a total of 30. There's only 12, and so asking which Savage is much closer to asking who somebody's favorite child is, than asking them to pick from a large swath where like we can all agree that maybe some fall away. I'd be interested to see which people thought were the best Savages.
It doesn't matter. We're looking at mechanics here to see if I can figure this out.
Yep.
So I've not seen this. I have never. I'll be honest with you. I have never watched through a Final Fantasy XIV raid boss in my life. I have seen odd videos of Final Fantasy XIV. Of course, I have that have come across. I couldn't tell you anything. I don't know any of the classes. If I'm looking here, this looks like an arcane mage. I'm seeing a lot of things that look like spells, so a healer maybe, or
Yeah.
it looks like a ranged DPSer.
I mean, if you have a look at the raid frames, can you figure out what kind of class it is?
Okay. I assume this is. We want to say that this video is from Audience. Please check them out for anything here. That's what we're going to be looking through today. I see a picture of what looks like a staff. I'm going to go with a mage of some description for this one. This here, Mellow, looks like a tank of some description. Although that's a staff, so it might be a different type of caster, maybe a healer. This Z icon, don't know. Green, I don't know. This is DPS. That looks like bullets, so ranged hunter type character maybe. This looks like a target as... Don't laugh at me. This looks like a target of some description, so again, maybe a ranged DPSer. This looks like a shield, so I think Shiku is a tank. No. Wait. Health bars. These two are tanks. These two here.
Yeah,
They're color-coded. The
There's
blues
colors.
are tanks, the greens are healers, so it's 2 tanks, 2 healers, and 4 DPS.
Correct.
Yeah! Okay.
Yeah.
So, in college, I took a course that talked about design and user experience. And when somebody goes through that for the first time and you made it, you are not supposed to hop in and correct them. You're supposed to watch very closely. Because if somebody walks up to a door that has a handle that looks like a pull and they push, and you put small little text on it that says push, and they continue, one person after another does pull, and one person after another, what are these morons doing? It's you. You designed a bad door. And so it should be something that, especially from somebody that is familiar with similar concepts, should be able to figure out on their own. So congrats to Preach, and congrats to Final Fantasy Design for being something that he can figure out. And so obviously icons are really hard. They're trying to communicate a lot, but he did really good. As for the upcoming telegraphs, we'll probably talk about that in a bit.
So our character is going to be a healer. Now, there appears to be a paperclip above this person's head. I don't know what that is. There are numbers, so it looks like what we would do with raid markers in World of Warcraft. And I'm seeing things on the floor, which I'm guessing, considering they're not pulled, are raid markers for where they're eventually going to stand because of mechanics. No. Not everybody has a number, though. Like, these two don't get a number for some reason. But maybe they're limited. Okay, I'm ready to hit the play button and figure out what's going on. I don't know what this boss looks like, so I want to see the boss first.
All right.
They're jumping. Mark. Oh, this is... Okay, so these are the different markers that they can apply to people. You can have paper clips, red markers, which means don't touch. So, I don't know.
Basically a big no.
Big no. And then you get these other markers, which probably are what you're going to use on enemies or something like that. I do quite like... I've got to say, I like these raid markers here with the numbers on. This is really cool. This is much better than having a triangle and a cross or whatever. Just being able to go to one, go to two.
That system has come an enormous way. You can now save presets and all of these things. That system from A Realm Reborn to now has come a very, very, very long way. It is a huge portion of why pickup groups, pugs, can do such a good job clearing this content once the gear and the strategies are well known.
I like that. Okay, it looks like we're fighting a butterfly of some description.
It is sort of a fairy, indeed. It is Titania Extreme for anyone that hasn't seen it yet. Yeah, I mean, let's start, I guess.
All right, let me go. I'll stop and start to talk about things. You don't have to confirm whether I'm right or wrong until maybe later, but we'll see. Okay. Battle commencing in 15 seconds. Mellow Shark. Okay, they gave themselves a different mark, like a healer mark, maybe? I don't know. Okay. A lot of buffs going out, a lot of short-term buffs, some shields or something going out. Okay,
the pull's very important.
Yeah, the pull is still, but come and play for the night is bright and you can sleep when you're dead. Now, I'm not reading this to try and for anything other than what mechanics they may have. So I'm predicting
in World of Warcraft, all of that stuff would be voiced.
They might have some sort of sleep mechanic.
Or
maybe there's something with sun and moon or something like that. Is there? Where's the enemy Caspar? What the? Oh, it's in the middle. Oh, okay. It's all what the? It's so overwhelming.
There's a lot going on.
He's having to deal with somebody's UI changes as well, not default UI. So it's a little bit like when he actually did a fairly recent video on how to apply to a guild, and when some guilds will ask for your UI, your raid frames. And so there's a lot here that is not default. And his movement of kind of how the native UI would be if you've downloaded the free trial and you've just logged in for the first time.
Yeah. Okay.
To be fair, like this location.
And yes, some of the, just to go back and chat mentioned to me since I'm filming this live that there is voice in 14, but it's just not all voiced. Not everything in every fight is voiced. It's something that when I played World of Warcraft with Brian and he had come in to prepare for Shadowlands and try Shadowlands and I took him into his first dungeons, he was shocked at how much the bosses were yelling at you and taunting you. The amount of voice inside dungeons was something that caught him off guard.
Is not the default location of the UI, like it's been moved around a little bit, but everything you see on screen is basically default UI. Nothing's been added to it.
I've spotted a cast bar, which is cool. Okay, something called Bright Sabbath is about to happen. I don't know what it's doing. They're all grouped up for it. It does AoE damage. I didn't see anything else. Oh, we're moving out for some reason. Okay. Why is this one person moving out? Can I figure out? Can you guess which one? Hey, what? So that was like an AoE on the floor? What in the fuck is going on? Raptor form. Oh, it changes into different animals. Okay. Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, it's gained raptor form. Okay, so it's gonna do. It's like it's like a Zulaman thing where it's changed into different forms.
So one key difference in encounter design in World of Warcraft over its history and encounter design within Final Fantasy is that things like weak auras, things like DBM, which stands for Deadly Boss Mods, whether or not that's what you're using for raid callouts, these add-ons that augment your raid experience by helping you know what other players are doing, calling out things that you don't necessarily have as your target or focus target, helping hint at mechanics incoming or currently happening. Those are not allowed to exist. They're against terms of service. It doesn't mean the tools aren't out there, but they are against terms of service. And so you end up with, yes, there are raid callouts happening within raids in voice, but you end up with something where they have to be much more clear about what they're communicating. And so the two most common ways to communicate, besides like cast bar ground effects, are going to be audio cues or visual cues within like telegraphs within the boss. And all of that has to be something where it's consistently done from boss to boss to create a language from the devs to us, as opposed to in World of Warcraft that very, very quickly in a world first race gets programmed into their raid callouts, and the person doing the callouts is aware of them. And so they adjust and they adapt so quickly that you've seen over the years that World of Warcraft has continued to have to try to make mechanics more and more complex, or has a current Mythic Plus dungeon that pissed people off because there's a maze that DBM can't help you with. And so there's an adjustment there where they have to keep raising the stakes because the players learn too quickly. They get things too perfectly because they have assistance. And so Final Fantasy the casual player just getting in, especially if they're not in a voice chat, they have to have some sort of visual cue telling them where they're supposed to be. And it's just different. That does mean that graphically the fights, in my opinion, are less immersive because ground effects can only look one way as opposed to in World of Warcraft. Since DBM's going to call it out, a toxic cloud can look more like a toxic cloud instead of an orange circle on the ground, and then a fire cloud can look more like a fire cloud. And so yes, spell effects are vastly bright and immersive in this game, but ground effects really only look a couple of different ways. And then lore-wise, they justify that with something called the echo, that our character is able to kind of perceive this as some justification for the fact that we have literally a UI over what we're seeing, where World of Warcraft, something would just look like what it is, and then we would let DBM and raid callouts teach and handle it for you.
Shall I say that the raptor form is part of one of the players? It's not actually part of the boss.
I mean, maybe later, because for our Final Fantasy XIV fans, I'm sure they're getting a kick out of it, because
it would transform into a raptor fairy.
Yeah, a raptor fairy. Cool. You know what's really interesting? We're watching a healer POV. I figured that out, but I cannot tell for the life of me how they're targeting players or anything like that. Whether they're using, I see a mouse icon here, but I have no idea whether the heals are smart heals. They just appear to be just pressing things. Or are they doing DPS right now? I don't know. Titania calls the...
I do mouse overhealing because I came from WoW, and mouse overhealing is pretty atypical in the community. It's not that it's non-existent, but it typically means that somebody came from a game where that was more common. So we'll see if he can figure out kind of how they're doing that.
Water. Okay, that's why this person went into the corner to soak a pool.
Mm-hmm.
I think these orbs are appearing slowly, and they've had to put a player in each of the pools. And I don't know why. And then they're bringing... I don't know whether they gained a buff. Let me go back a sec. Hold on. Right, these orbs spawned. I've got a fire resistance buff. And then moved into here.
Can you see whether the fire resistance buff is active always or not?
I can see a series of buffs here, actually. Hold on. Right, fire resistance is that blue hand. Nobody has it here. There goes the fire resistance buff, and then they move in with it, and then more people are gaining it. So it looks like they're sharing fire resistance amongst the teams, as it's so visually over the top. It's crazy. Oh, now we got 4 arrows coming in. What the hell? And then they got flame hammer. Okay, what I think happened here. All right, this is my guess as to what actually happened here. Is there's it summoned the water counts as fire, into the 4 corners. The players go into that, and then they gain a fire resistance buff, which they then brought to the party that gathered up. They then spread the fire resistance buffed out for the ability Flame Hammer, so it didn't kill them. That's my guess as to what that mechanic is. So they went out, they got fire resistance when you play with fire, then moved in, and this built up a load of fire. And then they did something called Flame Hammer, which didn't appear to have a caster. Oh, here we go. Then this happened, and they got and then fire resistance was removed. It looks like after the end of it. So I think that's what that...
Now, a lot of the mechanics he saw are things that we've seen one-on-one way earlier on, and so he's doing really good for the fact that a lot of these are layered on top of each other. So we'll see what all he gets here, but just keep in mind that when you have terms in MMOs such as stack, spread, dot, hot, all of these terminologies that get thrown around, here's what I need, here comes something that you need to pop a cooldown for, here comes all of these terminologies that get thrown around. You know these things are incoming, not because a top-end raid is not your first ever experience with any of the visual cues that the game may offer.
That mechanic was. Yeah, I think I figured that out.
Why do you think it was important that they soaked the pools on the outside?
My guess right now is because that's the only way to get... You have to soak the water up in order to get the fire resistance buff. So that's what I think they did. I think they had to go and soak the water pools. Otherwise, they don't get enough fire resistance buffs for the party, or the pool will explode if they're not soaked up. Because the pools have remained. I'm looking at the pools are still here. And there's more now. So whether just going in the water gives you the fire resistance buff, or it didn't before anyway.
Correct. It's just when you're standing in water, basically. And if you don't soak one of those pools, just bad things happen. Like I think an ad spawns, and you basically start wiping. So every single water pool has to be soaked.
All right, we've got something called Phantom Rune going on right now, and I'm noticing this pool has appeared, which the tank seems to be in. Oh, the whole room's going red. Is this just, that looks like to me just AoE damage? Like
so Phantom Rune you've seen before, which was an ability that happened early on, which is basically a PB AoE, and Phantom Rune is one of those abilities that is not always the same. It can change to be like a donut AoE, it could be like a PB AoE, and you need to kind of read the boss's body language, so to speak, to see which one it's going to be, or you can be on the edge of the effect and go and react to the effect. But if you're significantly out of range of either, then you're going to be late to react to it. So it's either read the body language, like which pose the boss is taking,
what
or be on the edge
about?
of the effect. Yeah, exactly.
Even when it's clearly seeable in the camera, which here it's not, from the settings of this particular POV, even when it's clear, there are people in this game that don't do well with visual telegraphs, and that is why verbal callouts are absolutely a thing. That is why in World First races we're seeing this trend across Final Fantasy and 14 where we're getting closer and closer to there being an extra man, a coach, being a standard, because there's somebody that can focus on this and they're not having to focus on their rotation where they need to be. They're just making callouts, because while people feel that DBMs are cheats, while people feel that all these things are just handing them the fight, people don't oftentimes remember, where does that knowledge come from? When it is a world first race, they are programming those things in real time. You're uploading that client later and getting the callouts handed to you from somebody that figured it out. And so it is not uncommon for a raid callout to be something that they said, hey, we think this is what's happening. Every minute we need to do this. And so they put in a timer in. Every minute it tells them to do that. If that's not what you're supposed to be doing, that DVM is now leading you the wrong direction. So they are not cheats in World First races. They're just added tools, and they don't actually help you if you're getting them wrong.
Exactly. That's how you do it.
Well, read the body language. It's just a blur. What?
I mean, if you look out for it, you could probably see it.
Yeah, I guess so. I'll try and spot that if it does it again. We've got Midsummer Night's Dream coming right now. I need to see it to try and figure out what it does. Midsummer Night's Dream. What does that do?
It's a splooge.
What is my screen right now? What? Okay, hold on. Midsummer Night's Dream. Here we go. I think it's just a phase change.
Most people turn down spell effects, especially spell effects of other players. People jack with their settings, because if you leave everything at max just because your computer can handle it, this game is like hitting hit with a flashbang.
Yep, it is.
Okay.
It's basically a really, really fancy phase change.
Okay. I got it. I nailed it. Okay. I tell you what, that's quite a lot of health. I'm noticing here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there's something going on
happening
with tanks. Yeah, these people are being targeted by this, and you AoE around you. So people are moving this out individually to do an AoE splash, and then moving back to the group. How it's choosing people, I'm not sure, because they're doing it in numerical order. So is it closest to the boss, or are they passing it between each other like a chain lightning? Let me watch that again. Hold on. So you get it, and then 2 moves out, and seemingly, I think you have to move through the character to take it off them. So where does 3 go?
there is a graphical representation of who's targeted. So.
Yeah, but they're doing it in a predetermined order, so they're choosing who's getting it. It went 1, 2, 3, 4, and it looks like they're moving into the boss's hitbox.
Guys, I want to note that this is why leveling through story does not make you a better player. Your ability to adjust to mechanics is something that the story does not teach. This is somebody that has never played this game, never seen this game, and yet due to his years of experience, blind progging into the top level raid content within the same genre, he is adjusting faster than players who possibly have thousands of hours of content in this game because they haven't done this. They don't play this type of content. The only way to get better at this type of content is to do this type of content.
In order to pick it up. So what I'm assuming this mechanic is you get debuffed or something, so you don't want to take 2 of these things.
Correct.
See, that number 3 moved into the hitbox to then pick up the next one. And 4 is going to do the same.
You can probably see what the mechanic is when the healer itself does it. I think he's the last one to do it.
Okay.
So he's going to go after 5 here, I think.
It looks to me like he just moves into the hitbox.
Yeah, that's basically like sort of like a... Nah, that's not the cheat way to do it. It's basically...
One of them did not move into the hitbox, but he didn't catch that.
You have to interrupt the tether. So one player gets tethered with that line mechanic, the chain mechanic, and you basically have to interrupt that tether to retarget the next blast.
Okay,
so you can either do that by standing in the hitbox and claiming that entire angle, or just moving in front of the player, basically.
Okay. So
this is not something that we haven't seen. This is actually available in the Burning Crusade, even in Kara. There's a boss that has laser beams, and who the laser beam hits is who is affected by that. And if a tank gets hit by it, they can't soak it again. And so these beams having to be soaked is a mechanic he has seen in World of Warcraft before. He's just not recognizing it as the same mechanic.
You just move into the line and then you take it over. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have something called Fey Light happening. Okay, this is going to blind me, isn't it? Whatever this is. And?
Not too bad.
Nothing. That's a tank cleave. That's a tank cleave. I just saw it.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure. Because there's like there's notification there. Yeah, that's just a tank hit. Some tank mitigation, I'm guessing.
Is it
WoW players are used to knowing nobody stands in front of the boss except for the tank, but they are also known for, it actually matters which direction the tank is facing in World of Warcraft, or in Final Fantasy. Getting hit in the back doesn't hit you the same way that it does across World of Warcraft's history. Bosses with tails also make World of Warcraft players rightfully nervous more often than they do Final Fantasy players.
It's just a single hit?
No, it's doing a chain of them. So whether it's swapping between tanks, I can't really tell. But it's a series of tank hits. I don't think it's... What the fuck is... What? Okay. We've got fireworks and sparklies going on over here. Chain of brambles. Okay, chain of brambles. Okay, there's some sort of party in this corner. I'm not sure if there's one in the other corner. What does it do? Nobody's moving to it. So is it something that's emanating from the corner? It is. Okay. So stand in the gap. This looks like to me.
There's a mechanic that you missed, and one of the players
They were talking through the first time they saw the brambles, so he didn't catch the brambles the second time through.
actually made a big boo boo, and I want to see if you
okay.
can if you can spot the mistake. So there's
is
a
it
mechanic
growth,
you
is
missed
it growth
called
rune?
No, growth rune is the one that you see growing on the sides. The mechanic that you missed
Okay.
is chain of bramble or bramble chain or something like that. So try and spot what happens there. So this one, chain of
Here,
brambles.
chain of brambles.
Mhm.
Okay, I thought chain of brambles was actually when the brambles started emanating from the sides. Okay, so this
Understandably,
is
but
targeting the
that's
tank.
growth rune.
Okay, so chain of brambles is currently targeting Mellow Shark, which is one of the tanks, as what I can tell. So let's see. Right, 2 people are running away here, actually, and they have a green icon. In fact, a lot of people have a green icon over their head. There's the chain. I see it. It looks like they're trying to snap it.
Correct.
Is it a snapping thing?
It is a snap.
Who
Do you see
made
how
the
it works,
boo-boo?
more or less, or not?
I saw the chain
Because-
coming from the boss, it looks like. I don't think that... Are they paired with players? I'm not sure if they're paired with players or with the boss. Let me watch it again.
So the problem with watching clear parties is that a lot of times if a mechanic has a targeting mechanism that's not natural, there's a way to bait it. And so you don't necessarily recognize the baiting. You don't recognize that people are causing the mechanic to appear the way they want it to. And so the way groups are split up and stuff is very intentional and pre-marked. And it's something that's learned for anybody that's going through E9S right now, and Brambles are not being baited correctly. There's several strategies on how to bait the current form of Brambles in E9S. It doesn't really matter which one you do as a group, as long as everybody's doing the same one.
So they gained it in a second. There. So they started going in one direction, plus Thorny Vine. I can't see who they're chained to.
Yeah, it's difficult to see, so I'll just say you are chained to another player, and the mechanic is actually the healers and the tanks, they get chained to the DPS.
Yes.
So 4 DPS get changed to 2 healers and 2 tanks. Now, can you see what the mistake...
So usually it's either targeting people based on role or it's targeting people based on location. And so if it has restrictions, and so you can bait based on kind of where you're standing, and so you can assign groups of players to split up. This is not atypical in WoW, but the difference is here that we run in 8-man parties and the comp is predetermined. You have 2 healers, 2 tanks, and 4 DPS as just the standard 8-man party across the board, with the exception of when we go into 24-man content, where that would be too many tanks because it's 3 groups of 8, so you drop to 1 tank in each one. And that was a change to make sure that we could help DPS queues, in my opinion, and the content is fine for it. So, knowing comp, you can really lean hard into how things are baited in 14, as opposed to in WoW, you don't know how many tanks and healers somebody's going to bring. As a matter of fact, in World Prog, there can even be times where people are bringing different numbers of healers as you're watching different groups. That doesn't really happen in 14.
Mistake was... because we're on a platform with limited movement options. Like this, if you fall off the edge, you're dead, right? So how is someone making a mistake here?
Okay, so I assume what's supposed to happen here, and I think most players did, is that the healers and the tanks are going to go to our top left here, and our DPS is supposed to go to the bottom right. And that should naturally snap all these things, because if it's only chained, if DPS are only changed to healers and tanks, vice versa, that's how that should work.
But two players are moving out early. Is that good or bad?
That good or bad? I don't know. Like for me, being out so it instantly snaps would make sense. But
it's hard to see this mechanic, and it's hard to feel, but when you've not played it. So what happens here is you need to actually stand on top of each other, because you need to move a minimum distance from the moment that the chains attach until they break. So if you're very far apart, then you just don't have the distance to cover to break it anymore.
Gotcha. Okay, that's a little technical, but I get the idea there.
That's why 2 people had to run all the way out and then get back in time to not get hit by the line.
Is moving early just makes you have to run even further afterwards.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So then the Brambles come out, which looks to me like you just stand in a safe spot. That's all that appears to be to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then a little concerned that the DPS got separated there, because I think if I'm not wrong, if Chain Bramble had done right, they would have only ever to separate a little bit and then be back with the group, although they're ranged, so it probably doesn't matter. But that's my feel there, is that
well, there's two melee DPS in this raid, which is a monk and a samurai, I think it is. Mm-hmm. They could have joined the party, but they would have to have like a very quick chains with their partner and a very quick leap back to the boss to be able to squeeze through the middle bramble that comes through the middle of the room, because you're naturally going to be separated, right? Because tanks and healers go moving to one side and DPS moving to the other. So you have to be really quick and snappy. Yeah, so that's basically like an optimization you can do if you do the mechanic well.
Is it bad? I'm looking for min-max maneuvers.
No, it's awesome.
No, uptime. Many times the different strategies for a boss that become publicly available are separated based on which ones are the easiest for people to just get through the fight, and which ones allow for people to kind of pad those meters, get the boss down faster. They require more technical skill, they require more perfection, but they maximize things like melee uptime. So he's getting it. He's getting it. The doorbell rang a couple times. I don't think they need anything. But this is the end of part 1. We're going to cut this short, and I'm going to do another part because this video is incredibly long as he diagnoses this fight. Obviously, you can't do it as real time as when he's calling a world first boss as they're watching pulls. And he may have already cleared the normal and heroic, and it's in a game he's familiar with, but I think he's off to a great start. He's catching quite a bit. I'm glad he has somebody with him to make sure he doesn't miss anything. And I look forward to the next part as he gets through figuring out gaming, kinda.